When it comes to politics, there's a word that you may hear often: optics. It's a word that's used to characterize the public perception of someone's decision, more so than the actual substance of the decision itself. Let me explain. For example, on July 29th, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi set a rule that requires House members to wear a mask in the chamber.
Members and staff will be required to wear masks at all times in the hall of the House, except that members may remove their masks temporarily when recognized.
In other words, wear your mask in the House chamber unless you're speaking, and then you can take it off. Because apparently, you can't spread the virus when you're standing right above people or when you're making a 30-minute speech on the House floor. It's science.
The chair expects all members and staff to adhere to this requirement as a sign of respect for the health, safety, and well-being of others.
So, wear a mask for the health, safety, and well-being of others. Unless you're Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi was caught walking around a San Francisco hair salon without a mask.
I just had my hair washed. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair?
First, Pelosi isn't getting her hair washed in the video. This is called walking. Second, if she was so concerned about the health, safety, and well-being of others, she could have held the mask up against her mouth and nose, like normal people do when they get their hair washed at a salon, but whatever. I should also mention that due to local ordinances, San Francisco hair salons were supposed to be closed.
It was clearly a setup. I take responsibility for falling for a setup by a neighborhood salon that I've gone to for years.
Oh, she was set up. Well, that's really unlikely because she's a lawmaker and she would probably know that salons were supposed to be closed. Besides, ignorance of the law is no excuse.
No one is above the law.
Anyway, when it comes to politicians making poor decisions during the health crisis, at least on an optics level, there is a surprising abundance. Let me introduce you to Denver Mayor Michael Hancock. On November 18th, in a letter to colleagues, Hancock wrote the following: "As the holidays approach, we all long to be with our families in person. But with the continued rise in cases, I'm urging you to refrain from travel this Thanksgiving holiday. For my family, that means canceling our traditional gathering of extended family. We must take these steps now if we want to change the trajectory of this virus." And on November 25th at 9:43 a.m., Mayor Hancock tweeted the following: "Pass the potatoes, not COVID. Stay at home as much as you can. Avoid travel if you can." So while he was begging people to avoid travel if they can, well, it turns out he couldn't. Mayor Hancock tweeted out that advice from Denver International Airport 30 minutes before taking a flight to Houston, Texas. And from Houston, Mayor Hancock took a second flight to Mississippi to see his wife and daughter. It turns out that someone at the airport recognized the mayor, thought it was hypocritical for him to travel while urging everyone else not to, and tipped off Channel 9 News in Denver. And this forced the mayor to address the situation. "I fully acknowledge that I have urged everyone to stay home and avoid unnecessary travel. I have shared how my family canceled our plans for our traditional multi-household Thanksgiving celebration. What I did not share, but should have, is that my wife and daughter have been in Mississippi, where my daughter recently took a job. As the holiday approached, I decided it would be safer for me to travel to see them than to have two family members travel back to Denver."
And so, I didn't want to let my daughter down.
Well, at least he had a good reason. "I apologize to the residents of Denver who see my decision as conflicting with the guidance to stay home for all but essential travel. I made my decision as a husband and father, and for those who are angry and disappointed, I humbly ask you to forgive decisions that are born of my heart and not my head." So thanks to the mayor following his heart and not his own advice, he had to quarantine for 14 days, which means that he will be limited in his capacity to carry out his duty as the mayor of the 19th largest city in the nation. But don't worry, with your taxpayer dollars paying his salary, he can still work from home. Next is Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron, who has called for restrictions on public gatherings and business operations. On November 12th, Myron tweeted the following: "Horrifying number of cases today. A 2-week pause won't cut it. We need meaningful action, much we could have done and still could do. Address indoor drinking dining, elective surgeries, and more. But we need to do it now. So while the county commissioner frowns upon elective surgeries during the health crisis, elective vacations are A-okay. Because what you might not have guessed from that tweet is that the county commissioner was sitting in a lovely rented condo in Hawaii.
I am working virtually, and I am also having a vacation.
Oh, well, as long as you're working, it's totally fine.
I was thinking about the trip for me personally. It didn't at all seem like a hypocritical or contradictory thing to do to travel.
So this genius didn't think it was hypocritical to call for a new stay-at-home order while at the same time chilling out in Hawaii. But whatever, Sharon, live your best life. And upon her arrival back into Oregon, Dr. Myron was required to quarantine for 14 days, which is really helpful to patients when you're a practicing emergency physician in the middle of a surging health crisis. Speaking of Hawaii, several Democrat and Republican state lawmakers went to Maui for a 4-day conference. This included California Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo. In a tweet back in September, Carrillo criticized South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem for frivolously bird hunting during the health crisis. But when it comes to frivolously traveling to Hawaii during a health crisis, Wendy doesn't have a problem. Funny how that works. In a statement, Carrillo attempted to justify the trip. Yes, I am currently in Hawaii for a 4-day conference focused on reopening our economy amid COVID-19. This trip is not funded through taxpayers' dollars. And she's right. It wasn't funded by taxpayer dollars. It was funded by a lobbyist group, the Independent Voter Project. With regards to this current trip, the Independent Voter Project has been in existence for 15 plus years and brings together bipartisan legislators from various states. Translation? Guys, it's a group of lobbyists that have been around for years, so it's totally fine if they pay for my flight and hotel room to try and influence my vote in the assembly. I mean, it's not like I was bird hunting or anything. Now, as I mentioned before, several Republican state lawmakers attended the conference in Hawaii as well, and that includes California Assemblyman Frank Bigelow. But the difference here is that, according to the LA Times, Assemblyman Bigelow paid for his trip out of pocket. And since the Assemblyman hasn't been calling for shutdowns or travel restrictions, there doesn't seem to be any hypocrisy here. However, it is poor optics to take a trip to Hawaii while many of your constituents are out of work, so there's that, I guess. Then there's Los Angeles County Supervisor Sheila Keel. On Tuesday, November 24th, Keel voted on an outdoor dining ban that would affect 31,000 LA County restaurants.
So the servers are not protected from us, and they're not protected from their other 6 tables that they're serving at that particular time, plus all of the hours in which they're working. So it is a most dangerous situation for them. So I sadly, but strongly support our moving our restaurants back to takeout and delivery.
Hours after voting in favor of the ban, Keel went to Il Forno Trattoria, her favorite restaurant in Santa Monica, to partake in some outdoor dining despite the danger to waitstaff. A spokesperson for Keel told Fox 11 she did dine al fresco at Il Forno on the very last day it was permissible. She loves Il Forno. It's been saddened to see it, like so many restaurants, suffer from a decline in revenue. She ate there taking appropriate precautions and sadly will not dine there again until our public health orders permit. What appropriate precautions did she take exactly, and why was she able to take them but insist on banning others from taking those same precautions? Oh, I forgot. She's a former Hollywood actress, which means she's an expert in science, so stop asking ridiculous questions. Then there's the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Listen to the governor speaking on WAMC's Northeast Report, talking about how people should conduct themselves during Thanksgiving in 2020.
That's what this Thanksgiving should be about. Thank you, nurse. Thank you, doctor. Thank you, essential worker. I'm not going to create any issue for you by getting somebody sick or getting sick myself, so you have to put your life in danger. Be alone physically, be connected spiritually.
And then, in the same interview, Governor Cuomo was asked what his Thanksgiving plans looked like.
My mom is going to come up and 2 of my girls is the current plan. But the plans change. But that's my plan.
So Governor Cuomo did in fact change his plans, but only after some pretty intense and well-deserved public backlash. So I'm sure that Governor Cuomo learned a powerful lesson and will never be hypocritical ever again. I'm just kidding, he's awful. Next, we have California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has consistently been an advocate of masks, social distancing, curfews, and lockdowns.
This disease continues to be deadly. This remains the most important thing you can do to mitigate the spread.
There's nothing wrong with encouraging people to wear a mask. And he has a mask in his hand, and that means that he's totally following his own advice, right? Going out to eat with members of your household this weekend? Don't forget to keep your mask on in between bites. Really? In between bites? Really? Well, as long as the governor is following his own advice, right? Oh wait, he doesn't. News broke that Governor Newsom traveled from Sacramento to attend a large gathering at the French Laundry, a lovely 3-star Michelin-rated restaurant located in Napa Valley.
A few weeks ago, I was asked to go to a friend's 50th birthday. My wife and I, a friend that I've known for almost 20 years, and a friend that had put a lot of time and energy into his 50th birthday.
Oh, I see. His friend put a lot of time and energy into his 50th birthday. The governor was obligated to go.
It was in Napa, which was in the orange status, relatively loose compared to some other counties. It was to be an outdoor restaurant.
But according to these photos obtained by Fox 11, it wasn't outdoors. And wow, look at all that mask wearing in between bites.
And we started the program started at 4 o'clock. It was one of those early reservations. I got there a little bit late at 4:30.
Oh good, because everyone knows that you can't catch COVID before 10 p.m. The earlier the better.
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated. And I made a bad mistake. Instead, I chose to sit there with my wife and a number of other couples that were outside the household.
And this is the biggest issue. According to the governor's own mandatory requirements for all gatherings, gatherings that include more than 3 households are prohibited.
And I made a bad mistake. Instead of sitting down, I should have stood up and walked back, got in my car, and drove back to my house.
He should have, but he didn't.
You can quibble about the guidelines, et cetera, et cetera.
You quibble about trivial matters. What this is about is the governor violating a mandatory requirement that was put in place by his own office. And good luck quibbling with the authorities if you get caught, because unless you're the governor or one of his lobbyist birthday buddies, you're going to be fined or put in jail. Because for politicians like Newsom in the age of COVID, it's rules for thee and not for them. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching, sharing, and slamming that like button. As always, thanks for tuning in. Be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel. And as always, I hope to see you next time.